Mate, Sean's got a very unique style. It looks like a pain in the butt to try and get around. And that style was super effective against Fluffy. He's jabbing his head off. And honestly, Fluffy had no answers. You know, he really couldn't get around Sean's style. And Sean just pieced him up, man. He just made Fluffy look very average.
I thought Sean looked a little different here. This time he was more aggressive. Obviously uses the jabs and the teeps. We know that. But he was going to work with the right hands a lot sooner than what he usually does. Doing a really good job of fighting on his back foot. Excuse me. But the footwork was beautiful.
I think this was one of his finest performances, perhaps his best performance since his win over Adesanya. He looked inspired. He looked ready to go. Physically, when he came out, it was like, this is the best shape I've seen him in a very, very long time.
Going into this fight, Sean was a meaningful underdog. I bring that up because some guys do their best work when nobody believes in them. Some guys are not the same guy when they're supported and told how great they are. They do the best when they're questioned, and Sean Strickland is one of these guys. If you go back and look at the history of Sean's career, his best performances come on nights, and I'm not just talking about outcome. He's had great outcomes, but I'm not just talking about outcomes. I'm talking about the actual performance. He does his best when he doesn't have pressure, when the world doesn't think he can do it, when the world questions him.
You know, it's interesting do we on Sunday say things like that? Oh, he improved, he got better. And sometimes I don't necessarily think that's ever the case. Okay. Sometimes it might be the case. But when you're dealing with a guy like Sean Strickland, who's been around for so long, who had such a reputation of always being really good, just not ever really being able to show it, I think this is a situation where it wasn't that he improved. He finally was able to show us how good he was.
Yeah.
Like I think he's always been this good. He's just never fought this way. And I think for whatever reason, he's matured into something that allowed him to fight this way.
But dude, Strickland would be so fucking annoying and hard to fight. But Anthony was backing him up the whole time. It was like when Strickland fought Strickland was backing up Izzy the whole time. And then Strickland, this fight, Anthony Hernandez was quite a bit smaller, looked smaller, and was backing Strickland up the whole time. But Strickland was just fucking jabbing, beautiful jab, popping the jab, fast jab. He's so hard to hit clean. And then Anthony got in a couple on a couple takedowns. Strickland was able to defend it. Strickland looked big, strong.
The way he throws his arms up so weird though. Like
it's so weird, bro. And it looks so not great, but it works and at the highest level.
And if we know anything, right? When Sean Strickland is at his best, he can fight behind the jab. When he fought Israel Adesanya, which to date is his greatest performance in his career, that jab was popping all night long. And tonight, it felt like that was the same thing that was happening to Anthony Hernandez. Hernandez couldn't really figure out the jab of Sean Strickland. And because he couldn't figure out the jab, Strickland was able to dictate and control the fight a little bit.
It wasn't the type of fight that I was expecting Fluffy to fight. I thought he'd be a little bit more aggressive. I thought he'd take his head offline a little bit more. I thought he'd mix up the wrestling a little bit more, get Sean really moving backwards. He had Sean moving backwards, but not with the aggressiveness of the boxing that I thought he was going to use.
But to me, this is an offense-first sport. This is an offense-first sport. And what has really troubled Sean Strickland as a fighter has been that he's been a little too defensive forward. To me, the big difference tonight was he didn't change up a lot. In many ways, it kind of looked like classic Sean Strickland in terms of what are the things that he does. But to me, he turned up the volume on the offense.
I thought Fluffy was going to be able to beat him because he's been looking pretty damn good recently. And Sean Strickland, Sean Strickland has one gear and one gear only. He kind of just, that's Philly shell style, kind of walk you down. If he starts being walked down, he doesn't do as well. But he was able to get the job done, and he was an underdog, believe it or not. And I think Bad Bunny was praying that this man was going to get beat, but has to wait.
Sean Strickland over Anthony Fluffy Hernandez as a pretty sizable betting underdog. The former undisputed champion had an outstanding performance, Kenny. I thought he won both rounds 1 and 2 before delivering the finish at the 2:33 mark of round 3. And a huge win, I think, in a career full of them for an increasingly Hall of Fame guy in Sean Strickland.
All right. I thought it was an incredible win for Strickland. Obviously, he didn't look great in his last fight. I know that was a year ago. It felt like this was the moment where he had to step up. Fluffy had looked amazing as of late. Maybe you could say he hadn't fought, anyone of the level of a Sean Strickland. So a huge win for Sean Strickland. A setback for Fluffy. I still think he can get there. And now the UFC, I still think that they're going to go with Khamzat versus Nasruddin. I think the bigger fight is Sean versus Khamzat. And I think Sean is doing whatever he can to try to, steer the talk in his direction with the stuff that he was saying either before or after the fight. But I still think they'll go with Nasruddin, and that's the right move. But the more sellable fight, if you want to call it that, is Strickland versus Chimaev. So Sean looked great. He looked absolutely great. I did not expect that out of him, especially with the layoffs.
No, I think that time off is important to note, because I don't care who you are, what you think your mentality is, how durable you have been, what your appetite is to be competitive in this sport. You cannot keep up a brutal schedule for that long. You're gonna need some time off, mentally, physically, spiritually. And Strickland was one of those guys who was staying quite active for a while. But I think we saw this great performance from him because of that time off.
But the point I want to make is Sean is very good about distilling your game down to its basic essence. Hard to take him down. Even if you take him down, hard to hold down. I know you saw, DDP get a little bit with that, but really that wasn't what won him that fight. Not really. He's hard to take down, and he's hard to hold down. So he takes away a lot of that. He's hard to put any kind of sustained offense on. Right? He's very, very difficult to do. Very, very difficult. Oh, I landed a big punch. Let me follow up. Dude, he's gone. He's gone. And if you punch, he's got hands up in the punching lanes to create traffic.
Strickland had a generational performance here against Anthony Hernandez, finishing him in the 3rd round by TKO. In a fight where, in the build-up, so many people in the MMA industry were acting like he wasn't one of the best middleweights in the world. Hernandez beat Brendan Allen by 29-28 decision, while Strickland finished him easily. I know it was a younger version or whatever you want to say. Strickland beat Imavov on a week's notice. He beat Adesanya on a couple of weeks' notice. People argue he beat Duplessis the first time for the belt, lost the second time, and other than that, he's lost to Alex Pereira. That's kind of it, bar being robbed by Cannonier. This is one of the best middleweights on earth.
Man, at the end of the day, dude, I'm one of the best in the world. I'm kind of bummed he didn't take me down. There's a couple times I had the body lock, and I was like, you should just take him down. You can't. You have the underhooks. All you got to do is trip him. But I was like, nah, f that. I said I was going to stand and bang. I'm going to stand and bang. But I was really tempted at one point to, just hit a leg trip. I was like, nah, fuck that. We're standing banging.